Walking around the neighborhood, and sure enough, we were able to be stumbled upon one of our good friends. Obviously, defends his Cincinnati Bengals. I got to really ask him about this new cut from Joe Burrow. He's definitely getting old with that blonde hair of his. Training camp is officially up on the way. So, joining us in his friendly neighborhood, our good friend Tim. So, training camp is finally upon us. Joe Burrow has a lot of things that people are questioning. What is he going to feel when he comes out of injury? And how are the offense really going to gel? Because now they've got new pieces, Jermaine Burton and multiple others. I think that the defense still is a bit of a concern, but I think can get better as weeks go on. This new look Cincinnati Bengals team, this has got to be pretty interesting. And it seems to me, Zach Taylor and the rest of them, they got a serious chip on their shoulder, right?
Yeah. We last week or last year was kind of a season we didn't want. That's not the season we planned for. It's not the season we had hoped for. And I think this year we've got a lot of, stuff that we want to do, As for the defense, I'm not worried. Lou Anarumo is definitely a very highly regarded defensive coordinator. He's very underrated. And I think with all the talent that we got with Geno Stone, and we picked up Von Bell back, and that was a good pickup to get. I think that those two big things there, and the rookies we got like Jordan Battle and DJ Turner, and we've got of course Cam Taylor-Britt, who has been who's been exceptional as well. So I don't the defense doesn't worry me as much as I'm kind of worried about the offense, not Joe Burrow in general. I think people want to keep saying he's going to get injured and stuff, but he's back to 100%. They cleared him. He's ready to play. He knows what he's doing. And I think that is the big thing there.
So Brian Callahan leaves. In comes a new offensive coordinator for this team. And from the last few times we've talked about it off the show, you spoke very highly of the offensive coordinator because this is somebody that I believe Zach Taylor really trusts. He trusted Brian Callahan, got the best out of Jake Browning. But now as a new offensive scheme comes in, how Joe Burrow is really going to produce, I think this offense, it's going to look completely brand new. And I think at the same time, I know we've talked about the T. Higgins conversation kind of cooled off a bit, but eventually Jamar Chase will get paid. So this now, you welcome in a new wide receiver, a new tight end. What should we expect from the play calling and the fluidity of this offense come, this season?
I don't think anything's going to change. Dan Pritchard was actually doing a lot of the work for Joe Burrow anyway. Joe even said that when he first got there, it was Dan Pritchard that first met him and, worked with him and did a lot of stuff. So I don't see anything in the aspect of Joe Burrow, like playing as him not being going to be good or not good. As for the play calling, it's not going to change. Zach Taylor did the play calling before. That's one of the big reasons why I told Titans fans, I said, guys, Brian Callahan doesn't know how to call plays. Like, he doesn't do the play calling. So I don't know why you guys Zach Taylor did fine in his first year at Cincinnati, but he had done play calling at Miami. And he had done play calling in the college level. Brian Callahan's never been a play caller. So I'm kind of interested and intrigued to see how he's going to work out at Titans. But I'm not too worried about our offense because Dan Pritchard's been there since Joe Burrow has. So, yeah, I don't think there's going to be a lot of differences or a lot of changes because, as I said, play calling is going to stick with where it is. And, that's about it.
So this is an interesting AFC North, and ultimately they're the toughest division in the NFL, in my opinion. When you look at other divisions like the AFC West, they could come up close, but injuries have decimated. At the same time, there's been inconsistencies on a couple areas. The NFC West have been trying to claim it, but the Cardinals and then, of course, the Seahawks definitely took a dip. So it only had been the Rams and Niners. But I think the AFC North, the competition of it is I got a defense, I've got a quarterback, I've got a coach, and I've also got some offensive weaponry, like as a whole in this division. So when I look at, the Steelers, when they went and got Russell Wilson, I was like, they do not want to be the mediocre team walking in, and especially in the AFC North, because you're going to tell me you're going to sit there with a straight face. Kenny Pickett's our guy. Give me a break. You're not coming in with the mediocrity. So, and then you got to compete with these quarterbacks. And then the Ravens lose Geno Stone now to Cincinnati. And so this AFC North, this looks to be a gigantic bloodbath, to say the least, because I'm going to make this hot take, my friend. I don't think we're going to have anybody sweeping anybody in this division. What's your thought on that?
I think you're right. I think we're going to split with everybody. I think everybody's going to split with everybody. I think that the weakest team is right now Pittsburgh, and Pittsburgh fans are just saying I'm a hater, but if you look at it, like every team in the division, I mean, except for Baltimore, but Baltimore doesn't really need two good receivers when you have a quarterback like Lamar Jackson. Like, you don't need to have two dominating receivers, but I mean, you have Cleveland, who has Jerry Jeudy, just picked him up in the offseason. They have Amari Cooper, who's already proven time and time again to be that guy. They got Njoku on the tight end department, and then they've got Nick Chubb, and then Cincinnati has Jermaine Burton, which they just picked up, and they've got T. Higgins for at least this season, and Jamar Chase, who's a dominant with hands, and Mike Gesicki, who's underrated as a tight end. He's very underrated as a tight end. Miami fans don't like him because he played horrible at Miami, but I think when you use Mike Gesicki correctly, he does well, and he's going to have Joe Burrow thrown to him. And running back wise, I think Chase Brown's going to do pretty well this year. So and then you get to Baltimore, who has a dominating run, with Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson. Zay Flowers should probably have a better season this year. So, I mean, as I said, they don't really need. They've got Mark Andrews, so they've got like at least a decent tight end. Pittsburgh, you can name one talented player on that offense.
Yeah,
George Pickens.
Yep. They
don't have the weapon capacity to fight with the other teams in the division. Like, it's just like you can mention multiple targets for all three, Lamar and Burrow and Watson, and say, well, they've got multiple targets to throw to. Mm-hmm. Who does Pittsburgh have? Like, they picked up a rookie, Warren. I'm not going to sit here and say that they're going to have like a shitty season, because Tomlin is the best coach. He's the best coach in that division, and he will find a way to, get the winning season that he needs. I just don't see them doing a lot. I think that they're still searching for their new Big Ben, mm-hmm. and I think that they're still out there trying to find that rhythm that they were in. And ironically, I think the rhythm that they're in, maybe they need to move on from head coach. Maybe they need to get somebody new in there and just move on into a different capacity and change things. Because the thing is they've been the same team. They're running the same plays and doing the same thing they did with Big Ben. And you can't do that with quarterbacks like Kenny Pickett and Watson and even Justin Fields. You've got to change the scheme when you get a new quarterback in there, and I think that's Tomlin's big issue. That's my biggest issue with Tomlin is he can't do change well.
Yeah, and especially too, I get concerned about the offensive line. Now, I do feel like they did get a very solid pick in Troy Fautanu, but I feel like they're probably going to end up needing a little bit more. Then, not to mention too, when they end up drafting Roman Wilson, I've never second guessed the Steelers in their wide receiver department, because for some reason, every time they draft a receiver that we're not so sure about, oh, here he comes. He's just that productive. I mean, it's gone all through the list of a lot of these receivers we've seen up in Pittsburgh. So the AFC, because we know every team right now in this conference is held to a very high standard. The Jets want to be a better team. They've got a better offensive line around them now. And then they ended up going and get a couple pieces here and there because they are trying to ensure Aaron Rodgers is going to stay on the field for more than 5 minutes. The Bills got gutted with wide receivers, but yet we have Keon Coleman, we got Khalil Shakir, we got a lot of these other pieces, but yet people still kind of knock on the Bills. I'm like, you know what? Give me your stocks. Whomever is selling all their stocks up on it, it's crazy. So the AFC, and Chase and I, we were talking about it. There's a lot of storylines to be talked about here, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, and as I did a video a while back, not a while back, a couple weeks ago on my TikTok, and I said that Josh Allen's been here before. Like, we're forgetting 2019.
Yep.
He didn't have Stephon Diggs.
Yep.
He didn't have a superior wide receiver core. He had John Brown and I think Kelvin Benjamin, maybe?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, he didn't have that. And you know what? He still ended up winning games. He still ended up getting in the playoffs. I mean, people are underrating Josh Allen, and I get it. I get it. You know, he gets the interceptions, and he sometimes messes up in big games. And that's an issue. I mean, I'm not saying it's not, but I'm not going to downgrade him because Brett Favre had a shit ton of interceptions.
Yep.
John Elway had a shit ton of interceptions. That's what happens with gunslingers. They're going to get those interceptions.
Yep.
But I think in Josh Allen's case here, he's going to shut a lot of naysayers up this year because he's going to be the same old Josh Allen and score points and maybe even win that division. And there's going to be people that are like, whoa, okay. You know, I mean, but they'll probably come up with excuses. Well, he had a better defense. Well, this and that, you know. Josh Allen is forever going to be one of those most criticized quarterbacks of all time. Yeah. Same thing with Phillip Rivers. He was so much criticized all the time. And you look at his stats and you're like, dude, this guy's top 10 in passing yards. Like, this dude was like slinging that football around. Like, yeah, he didn't win a lot of playoff games. Yeah, he didn't make it to the Super Bowl. But you know what? Sometimes that's not everything it's cracked up to be. I mean, Stan Humphries went to the Super Bowl. Is he better than Rivers? No, not by any means. And I think that there is a lot of storylines in the AFC. And you know, I'm one of these people that if you in the AFC right now, if you are not the first or second best team in your division, you're not making the playoffs.
Yep.
It does not matter what your record is. You could be 10-7. And if you're the third best team in your division, you are not making the playoffs in the AFC.
Yeah, it's a tough stretch. And at the same time, too, it's just like, you know, I feel like in a similar parallel, Josh Allen and Justin Herbert get almost literally the same criticism, but they're in different positions. The only difference is Justin got the coach. We have yet to see with McDermott what he does without these receivers and if he could basically bounce back, up and in it. But, you know, like I was telling Chase, you know, up here, and like the thing is that training camp is here. And there's a lot of different storylines left to be said. And I know the biggest one, of course, everybody is basically pushing the doom button because Xavier Worthy literally caught a 60-yard bomb from Mahomes. And people are freaking out and they're like, that's it. Game over. Chiefs ended up winning it again. So it's like, well, but pump the brakes. It's like, training camp.
Yeah, but remember in training, I think it was training camp, Chase's first year, Jamar Chase, he was dropping. He's dropping everything. He wasn't holding on to the football. He was like missing routes. And people were like, oh, he's going to be a bust. He's going to be horrible. And I'm like, nope. He broke the rookie record in his first year. And he had, 10 touchdowns that year? Like, I mean, it's just like,
yep.
You guys can't look at training camp and go, oh, well, that's the gospel. I mean, I'm not saying Worthy's not going to be a good receiver, but it's easy to do a bomb like that when your teammates aren't guarding you.
Yeah. It's very true. And especially when you ain't got the pads on where you're
Oh, yeah.
playing physical football. So at the end of the day, it's like, yeah.
I think long term Worthy's going to be great. I think he's going to be a sought after wide receiver. But, out of all the ones that were picked up, I'm kind of liking what I see from Pearsall.
Yeah. And here's the thing, though, too. This is an interesting conversation because Pearsall now is on the PUP list because he ended up injuring his hamstring. So now this Ayuk conversation, I feel like, is going to take a different turn. Now, I'm actually kind of glad we've got a former pro receiver on Friday that we'll ask this question of to get his mindset on both CD and with Brandon Ayuk. But I feel like with this now, the Niners are kind of looking at themselves that if Pearsall hurt his hamstring, it's going to be a slow walk getting back into the foot race. But yet now what do you do with this Ayuk contract situation? It's like, I think at this point, he's going to stay. I think they're probably going to entertain him.
As I thought about it, I think he's going to stay anyway. Because here's the thing. Yeah, you could go somewhere else, but you can pretty much basically get away with whatever you want right now.
Yeah.
You're Brandon Ayuk. They need you now even more than what they did before. But before, I didn't see the 49ers getting rid of him until offseason because they're not going to – a lot of teams now have this mentality that we're not rewarding this behavior. I have a 6-year-old, and when she acts up, I don't give her a treat for that.
The good old scolding.
Exactly. Brandon Ayuk is being a child. He's being a child. So
look for him to be traded right before the deadline. Though you're going to have those wide receiver needy teams with that somebody goes down and they're willing to offer a first round pick for him.
Yep. I know, but you're still rewarding bad behavior. Same thing when off season when Trey Hendrickson requested a trade and T. Higgins requested a trade. What did Cincinnati do? You're not going anywhere.
Yeah.
We don't care what you want. You're not going anywhere. And the same thing happens with Ayuk that has happened with T. Higgins. The 49ers have the choice of trading him. So Ayuk can do whatever he wants, but in the long run, 49ers are still going, we're still not rewarding your behavior.
Yeah.
You want to go somewhere, that's fine, but we're not going to sit here and accommodate to you because of your behavior. And I kind of like it with 49ers. I like their attitude here because they're basically like, we're not letting a player bully us.
Well, this is the thing is that I think, and I've said this several times, John Lynch and all of them are very, very smart businessmen because they are not clinged on to with what we like as fans are so used to that when news breaks out, like I've always said this, every action has a reaction. How do people end up reacting when the news ends up breaking out upon them? But John Lynch and the Niners are just like, listen, we drafted 2 receivers. What are we in such panic mode for? We can get a first-round pick for Brandon Ayuk because that's what he was in 2020 with Jalen Reagor and Justin Jefferson. So it's not like we are that desperate of a franchise. Sure, we can trade him off, get a first-round pick. He'll probably end up going somewhere where he knows he's going to get an extension somewhere. Somebody's going to pay the big bucks. But at the end of the day, like the Niners are smart enough that they know with what they have, and they're smart enough that they can go and get more. If in fact something hit the fan, there's plenty of wide receivers that are up out there in college that I guarantee you they are not afraid to go and pick up.
Oh yeah. But I think Cincinnati and 49ers aren't the only ones that do this trade thing. How many times do we see every year?
Yep.
This player wants out. This player wants out. And the team's like, okay. And? Well, you're not going to let me go? No, we're not. Good talk, though. Thanks. Cool story.
Yeah.
Unless you pull like a Chris Jones, like somebody like that who missed half the season and then came back halfway through and then finally got his contract. Like, I mean,
yeah, I mean, I guess it depends on who's doing it. Ayuk and T. Higgins. I mean, T. Higgins. The situation with T. Higgins was, we picked up Jermaine Burton for a reason, bro. Like, I mean, we're prepared for this. We thought you were going to leave anyway. I think the one that threw Cincinnati off was Trey Hendrickson, because like 2 weeks prior to him asking for a trade, he said, I love it here. I love being with this team. This team's awesome. So I think the Trey Hendrickson situation was more of his agent than it was Trey Hendrickson, because it kind of lasted a week. And then he was in interviews and he said, look, I just want to get, the money that I want. And from what I understand, they're going to try to keep Hendrickson before they keep Higgins, which, I mean, I hate to see Higgins go, but I've been preparing for this past 2 years. I knew he wasn't going to stay. So I guess it depends on the player. And in Ayuk's situation, he is a relevant player to that team. But as we discussed on the live last night, Chase, I mean, he's not the only talent on that team. Mm-hmm. So
yeah. And Tim, I got a question for you. So like we were sitting here talking earlier about we don't think that there's going to be, any other division that is going to come close to what the AFC North is. We see how good they are with the two-time coach of the year and Kevin Stefanski, what he was able to do, how well Mike Tomlin is coaching that team. Zach Taylor's brought the Bengals back into relevancy in terms with Joe Burrow. And then you got John Harbaugh with Lamar Jackson and the Ravens. But the one thing I want to talk about is I want to talk about Joe Burrow's character, because the reason why he has his blonde hair now, it was just a phase. It like he said, it's because he got bored, but he also said that there's a little bit more behind it. He had a super fan that was on the verge of dying from cancer. I called into him and asked, hey, how could it be a blonde hair?
Uh-oh.
He comes in with blonde hair,
you're going out,
shaved head to accommodate him.
Oh, there he is.
Okay, I heard some of that. You were going in and out there, but
so what I was saying is like you have a guy like Joe Burrow who was nice enough to accommodate this wish from this young fan, because he's just like, how cool would it be if you had shaved your head and or dyed your hair? And he meant it as a joke, but Joe took it seriously because he thought that what this super fan was going through, this is the least that he could do.
Yeah, I mean, if you also, and I'm not trying to divert from Joe Burrow, because Joe Burrow is a extremely good sportsman, and he's a good off the field guy. He's a good face of your franchise. But I can also look at Lamar Jackson too, who I saw in a recent video about a couple months ago. He was, I guess, at a charity golf event, and there was a kid in the stands who was trying to get his attention the whole time, and the kid was just like being overlooked by adults. And Lamar kind of spread the adults away, and he's like, "Come here," and gets the kids to come up and starts signing all this stuff for the kids. And the adults are just like getting pissed. But in Lamar's head, he's like, you're going to sell that shit.
Yep.
These kids are going to keep it on their wall or their shelf or, their trophy case. And they're going to remember this and cherish this 10 times more than you will. And and I gained a lot more respect for Lamar in that aspect, because he could have just went on and just signed whatever, but he was like, no, I'm going to sign to these kids first, because the kids are the ones that deserve the autographs more than the guys who are selling them and pushing them on eBay. Because in essence, Lamar doesn't get money for that. Lamar doesn't get any like residual checks every time these guys sell one of these. So by him doing that for the kids, I was like, you know what? That's kick-ass. That's a class act on his part. So I think when you have, I think the beauty of being the AFC North is we have 2 top 5 quarterbacks. We have roughly, 2 top 10 wide receivers. With technically, I mean, you could put Amari Cooper in that conversation. We have, there's 2 top head coaches in the division with Harbaugh and Tomlin. I mean, if you look at any ranking, you'll see an AFC North player on there in the top 5. Whether it's defense with TJ Watt and Myles Garrett, whether it's offense with Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson, there is always, when you look at a ranking, there's always 2 AFC North players in that. And I think that shows the dominance of this division. I've seen other lives where people are afraid to face our division because, I mean, heck, Cincinnati almost went to the playoffs last year with Jake Browning. I mean,
and on the NFL Top 100, I checked it earlier. We've got at least 7 AFC North players on there so far, and they just reached number 71.
Yeah, I mean, it reminds me kind of like the 90s with the what was it? The Dallas's division when they had the Giants were playing well. The Cowboys were playing well. The Eagles were playing well. That whole entire division dominated the 90s. It was just one of those. That's why Cowboys were in the. It was Cowboys were in the Super Bowl, then 49ers went, and then Cowboys went back, and then Eagles were fighting in that division. I mean, it was literally that division was. I mean, they call it the NFC least now, but it used to be the strongest division in football, and now it's the AFC North, and I kind of like it. I like the fact that people are talking about our division a little bit more because 3 or 4 years ago we weren't that division to talk about. We had a good quarterback here and a good player there, but I mean, now it's just such a dominating division. Even when they play each other, you don't know who's going to win. Like, even with Cincinnati and Cleveland, like, you could be at second quarter and be like, I don't know who's going to win this because it's
Cleveland.
It's so like back and forth sometimes. Like, I remember one of the games last year we played, it was like field goals in the first half. I was like, is someone going to score something other than a field? Like, it's same thing with Baltimore and Cleveland or Pittsburgh and Baltimore, It's just, you never know how these games are going to turn out. And I think that's what I think the simple fact that it's a tough, but it's also one of the most exciting divisions.
Yeah, it really is.
I agree. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, no, I was going to end up closing it up, but yeah, no, I totally agree. I think the AFC North, they're in good hands. They really are. Amongst all divisions in the NFL, they are the ones that they know what it means to play tough, grit football. They know what it means when it comes to winning games when they matter, and and you got to win those games in the trenches. So it'll be interesting to see how the season goes up. But yeah, I'm excited about it. But Chase, you got a closing argument on there too?
Yeah, no, like I was just gonna say that the AFC North, like everybody wants to sit here and say that a team is gonna sweep another team, like you said earlier, or they're gonna get blown out. The AFC North always plays every single opponent very, very close, regardless of who it is. And you could go into a game. And the Ravens could have the best defense in the league. They could be, 9-0 going into playing Cleveland or playing Cincy or whatever. And that doesn't mean that we're gonna roll over and take it. Like they could come out of that game with their first loss. That's how this division is.
Oh yeah. It'll be interesting for sure. And like I said, I don't think there's going to be any sweeps in this division. I think everybody plays very balanced to each other. And I'm sure you could probably make an argument that Pittsburgh could be on the brink of it, but I think, every one of these teams are going to play very hard and very heavy. But appreciate you coming on by, Tim, our potential newest recruit on the Sports Wave Network. I'm excited to have him aboard and having a bunch of his friends in his neighborhood that do nothing but talking about sports, because we got to talk about it. We got a lot to end up talking about serious topics, but appreciate you coming on by, man. Appreciate all the insights, and I really am interested to see how the Bengals really finish this out. Take care, my friend. All right. Yeah, I mean, the thing about it though, and so here's an